Okay, so you went to college in Boston, right?
Yes.
And you majored in, well, you got your bachelor's of,
Yeah, so BSBA, so my business degree.
right.
In
and then
marketing with a minor in PR.
And that's what you always wanted to do.
So ultimately I wanted to do PR. And I went into our business program and majored in marketing, but our business program was just really elite. And so I realized that after I had joined the school. So I switched my major a little late, did 5 years in order to get my business degree.
Yeah.
So I did the minor, but kind of always thought I'd get into PR.
And then you moved to Los Angeles.
I moved to LA in 2014, yes.
What was the goal when you said, okay, I'm going to LA?
Big publicist of the stars.
Publicist of the stars.
Publicist of the stars.
Nice.
That was
cool.
it.
And how did that go? So you landed a job in PR.
Yes.
And how did you get that first job?
So there were a lot of like job boards at the time. I forget what that was. It was like do you remember this? It was like anonymous PR.com or something, or like anonymous something. It was like the in to get like jobs at the time.
So it definitely wasn't on Craigslist.
It was not a Craigslist job ad. But so I was applying to a couple jobs on there. Like I interviewed at, I think, CAA for like an assistant role at the time. And then this kind of came up as like a, PR assistant at, it didn't say the name of the company or anything like that. And so I went in and I interviewed, and it was really official. They did like a background check on me, and
Whoa.
It was funny. They were like asking me some questions. I was like, oh wow, where did they like dig that up from? Like
Super intimidating, right?
Yes, so intimidating. But I mean, obviously I landed the job, and it was really difficult. Like they put you through it. They make you work. But I learned so much in that job.
What do you think were the biggest skills you learned and took away from PR?
Attention to detail, which
yeah.
she will literally, like my old boss, Stacy, like she will, if she ever hears this, would probably laugh, because it's like the biggest thing was like you needed, I mean, as you know, in PR, it's like one tiny little mistake and that could be just like you lose a client,
For sure.
And especially at that level too, it really, it's make or break. So really it's like 24/7, 365, like it doesn't matter if it's Christmas. Sometimes you do have to take a phone call, and it is what it is.
And that is really the entertainment industry.
When
you're working with talent, you're on.
I learned that early on. It doesn't matter. Doesn't just, you have to deal with it,
So attention to detail, huge skill.
Huge skill.
And that transfers over to, I think, anything you want to succeed at.
Everything in the industry. That I took that on with me forever.
Yeah.
Everywhere I go now, I'm so detail oriented, and that's definitely helped me a lot. But yes, honestly, dedication. I mean, I've never seen anyone in the industry more dedicated than her, and really anyone that worked at that company was just so, just their job really meant everything.
Yeah, and PR is such a weird job because you cannot guarantee your clients any results in terms of media coverage. You can't guarantee it, because it's editorial. So you're really in survival mode 24/7, which could lead to burnout and lead to mental health problems if you don't take care of yourself.
I can't tell you how many times I went home at night and cried.
For sure.
That job. There's so, again, I went through it. But again, if it weren't for that job, I don't know that I would be who I am today. So I'm forever grateful for that because of just how much I learned,
Speaking of attention to detail, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I booked my boss's flight for him, one of his flights, and I booked it for the wrong day. And it was like a non-refundable flight.
No.
Yeah. So
you can't do that.
Yeah, so attention to detail. Triple check things before you...
Let me tell you, when I moved into management and I was booking flights for, tours and 50 people tours and plus, you know, and I would catch that a lot. We had travel agents that would ultimately do the final bookings, and how many times I caught the travel agent's mistakes. And I'm like, hey, this is for the wrong date, or sometimes the wrong month. And I'm like, how do you make that mistake? Like, this is your job sometimes, you know, and it's like, you kind of have to just bear with it. But it's like, thank God I caught that. Like,
yeah,
you know, and that
I don't know if is that a skill just because of working in PR that you can forecast and kind of see where the issues are going to arise and catch them?
You know, I wonder, because we had other people that came into that job that, you know, I ultimately moved up from an assistant role to a coordinator role at the PR company. We had other people come in that kind of couldn't do the attention to detail. So I think that must be a skill that I did just kind of naturally have.
Yeah.
That really helped me in that, because I think that's something that has to be kind of natural in a way.
Yeah.
But it definitely like showed me like, okay, like really be.
So how did you make a complete left turn from PR and go into management? How did that happen?
So I had ultimately been helping a friend that needed some extra PR work on one of his albums, and he asked me, you know, can you help me get some extra PR, whatever, and I got him some press that his publicist at the time couldn't get, and he was like, well, you did great with this. My manager is looking for someone to come into the office. It might be a bit of a step back, but, you know, this could be a really cool opportunity for you. Do you want to interview for this management company? It's in music. I don't know if you're looking to get into music, but could be kind of a cool path for you. So I took this interview. And they pretty much hired me on the spot. And
That's always nice.
It was cool. It was hard to leave PR though, because at the time, I mean, they were really like, we think you have a career here, you know?
Oh, right.
But, I was also like, is this what I want to do forever? I think I started to realize if this is what I'm doing, like it was really hard on me. Like as much as I learned a lot, I was going through it at the same time. And I was like, you know, and no offense to the PR world, Mike, but I was at an award show and I was sitting in the back we were probably there for about 8 or 9 hours, watching the award show on a tiny little screen with like 50 other publicists, like eating granola bars because we hadn't eaten all day, like dying. And I'm like, interesting, like all the managers are sitting out at the tables with the artists.
Oh, right, right.
And I'm like, and we're back here eating granola bars, just working our butts off.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I want to be out at the table.
Yeah.
God damn it.
So that's actually
So I hear about management, and I'm like,
yeah.
Okay. Well, okay, you worked hard too, but at least you get to be, you know, out there. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, this sounds like a cool step and a new learning experience. You know, sure. I kind of felt like, let's try something new. Mm-hmm. So then that was where I kind of thought, let's do it. Why not? You know, what will it hurt?
You get into this role in management, and then you start getting into day-to-day management, which is very detail-oriented. Some really amazing acts, Godsmack, Joe Perry of Aerosmith. Who are some other?
Hollywood Vampires.
Right.
Hoobastank. Yeah. Steel Panther at the time.
Yeah. What is the major differences between working in entertainment PR and then going into artist management? But you go from like film and TV stuff with actors and things like that, and then going into artists.
Oh my gosh. It was way more buttoned up and official, I will say, like in PR. So I'll never forget one of the first events I went to, it was for Steel Panther. And I showed up with like my little folder.
Yeah.
And my little notebook, and Ben Weeks, who is like my counterpart, he was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He was like, "Don't ever come to anything with a folder ever again."
Yeah. Well,
he was like, "This is like you know." Whatever, bring your laptop or whatever, but don't ever show up with a folder.
I remember being taught in music business school that if you show up and you're the person with the clipboard, people think you're in charge automatically, like you're running the show.
Yeah.
So I can see some logic in showing up with, you know, a folder and being prepared. But also rock and roll is
rock and roll is just a different world.
Yeah, we're
different
going
planet.
just 100 miles per hour.
Yes.
And when we get there, we're there and we'll see what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah. You're not, I mean, so again, in, entertainment, PR, when you're, working with actors and you're on the red carpet, you're really suited up,
Yeah.
When you're in rock and roll, it's like jeans, t-shirt, like
And black.
black. Oh, definitely wear black.
Yeah.
Like never make the mistake of wearing white and going to a show or
Yeah. And you stick out like a sore thumb.
yeah, and then everyone's like, look at this idiot.
Yeah.
Like,
I remember my wife was telling me one time, I forget what event she showed up to. It was something, but she had just started working also PR, music PR. And they were, her colleagues were joking with her like, oh, you didn't wear black? Like, so you're not jaded yet? That kind of thing. Like you're going to a funeral or something?
yeah, exactly.
What would you say to somebody who aspires to working in artist management? Like, what should their mindset be trying to step into that world?
Buckle up.
Yeah.
It is going to be an adventure. It's a lot of up and downs. You really need to be, your client has to be number one. And you have to understand too that all of your clients have different goals, and you need to, remember that they all have different plans. So, everyone's a little different. So you can't kind of have like one, it's not like a cookie cutter, one goal for every single client, So really make sure that you understand who your client is and what they're looking for and know them, know your client, know what they're looking for, and like work toward that goal that you have in mind for them. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like
being on the same page with your clients is
being
key.
on the same page is key. And there's so many times where like, if you're not on the same page, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And I've just seen time and time again where it's just like, there's a disconnect and it's like, it's not going to,
Yeah.
it just doesn't, you're not vibing,
Right. So at this stage of your career, this is kind of where we cross paths because I'm doing music PR and you're on the management side. And I think the first project where via email we started working with each other was probably Joe Perry, I think in his Switzerland Manifesto album.
Yeah.
So I think that's when we first started working together. And I remember you always being on top of those details that we're talking about. And like always just like coming through with like the assets and the links and whatever we needed, like you were there and you had it. If you didn't already get it to us ahead of time before having to ask for it, which is super key, which is crazy. And then reminiscing about his
It's amazing how many people, by the way, like don't do those things.
Oh yeah.
Like how many, because now that I'm on like the record label side, like how you have to chase people.
Oh.
And then they don't like know what to do, or they don't know what to send, or they're like, I don't know. It's interesting now being on the other side of things, not to like,
yeah. I have a lot of questions about a lot of people who work in the music industry. Yeah. Like, how are you working in the music industry?
How are you here? Like, what are you doing?
How do you have a job in this
How do you
industry?
have a job? Yeah. And some people like really think that they know what they're doing. And I'm like,
yeah. Do you think a lot of people just get lucky and end up working in the music industry?
There's a lot of luck in this industry. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So luck is a good thing.
I was just talking about this last night with someone. Like 90% of this is luck. And sadly, it isn't about like, how smart you are. And
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways.
Well.
But back up.
So,
tell me more about me. No, just kidding.
So I think then the first time we actually met in person, which was probably only 30 seconds, in a very noisy room, which was at the Roxy in LA for Joe Perry's album release party. And I was just reminiscing about that yesterday in preparation of talking to you and thinking about how fucking crazy that night was and how all of my younger aspirations were just coming full circle that night in that room. Like I remember sitting in one of the booths, which you probably orchestrated us having a booth, which is a feat in itself in the Roxy to get a booth. And I remember looking to my right and there was Gene Simmons of Kiss sitting there by himself, just enjoying what he was watching. And then, obviously on stage you have Joe Perry. And when I first was working on that project and I met Joe Perry, I was like, oh, this is a rock star. This is a legit rock star. And at that point, I had been around a lot of rock stars, but I feel like he's like the epitome of what a rock star is. He just oozes rock star off of him.
Yeah.
And so I'm watching them on stage. It's Joe Perry, and then Slash comes out, and Chris Robinson from the Black Crowes comes out. I'm sitting in the booth, and then up on the back of the booth is Billy Gibbons of ZZ Top, Matt Sorum, and I'm like, what is going on in this room tonight? It was crazy. So I really wanted to ask you, how did you go about orchestrating and facilitating and organizing all those iconic people in the same room? I'm sure there was so much back and forth between managers and whoever else.
And all of their teams too. And yeah, it was wild. So, I mean, it was a team effort, obviously, like, because it wasn't just me. Obviously, there was Ben, there were the other, managers involved, but it was chaotic. So first of all, it's a tiny room. The Roxy's really small. So we sold 250 tickets to the public, which went in, I think 5 minutes. Yeah. And then the rest were all VIPs. And obviously all of those guys have a lot of VIP friends. And so it's like, how many tickets does each person get, And then it's like, okay, well, who's worthy enough for a booth?
Right.
And then it's like, who do we tell that?
How did I get in the booth?
Who do they get? I honestly don't remember.
I don't know how I got in the booth.
I told you, I feel like a part of me that night, like, kind of dissociated because I'm like, there's parts of that night I'm like, I don't even remember. Like, it was crazy. I don't know. I think that it was like, we did like an industry booth, maybe.
Perhaps.
Were you in the booth with other industry folk, or was it just
when you
company?
have Billy Gibbons in the booth with you, I don't think you pay attention to whoever else sitting in the booth.
No, seriously, truly, you're like...
That's all I remember. I was there, and Billy and Matt Sorum were in that booth.
Yeah. Weirdly, the best part of my night was David Johansen, because I love the movie Scrooged. And he was the ghost of Christmas Past. And I'm like, to me, that was just like, oh, I just saw him up there and I was like, oh, that's my favorite movie.
Yeah. And what's the backstage at the Roxy? I would assume it's super tiny too, right?
You haven't been up there? So it's up the stairs in the back.
Yeah.
And there's it's small. There's 2 or 3
and it looks
rooms
like this
there.
Backstage, right?
Yeah.
Of the Roxy?
Yeah, similar. Yeah.
It's got that vibe.
So it's really small.
We're actually broadcasting from the backstage of the Roxy.
Yeah, surprise everybody.
Yeah, so that night was crazy, and I met you for maybe 15 seconds, to be honest. You walked up, you gave us something or whatever, said hello, and then you were gone, and that was it. Then I never saw you again.
That was it?
Yeah, so I was just like, wow.
Probably running back and forth between the doors, and that's the thing too, is you're getting everyone in, you're constantly getting text messages. The thing is too, is you have a guest list, right? But then people are like, well, so-and-so is coming with their friend and they need to get in too. And then there's fire code. There's security saying, well, we can't let any more people in. And you're like, okay, but Billy Gibbons has a friend that's with him, whatever, they have to come in. And then there's people coming through the back door. Obviously Johnny Depp's not coming through the front entrance.
Oh yeah, he was on stage too. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Just forgot about that.
Yeah.
I mean, the picture behind your desk is from that night.
Right. So the last song.
Joe decided to smash his guitar at the last song.
Yeah, and
which was epic. I mean, we got the epic shot that night.
Steve Thrasher, I think,
Steve Thrasher took that photo.
Yeah, that's an incredible shot, and I think nobody was expecting him to do that,
no.
Nor was he expecting to do it, from what I remember.
No, he was not expecting to do that. He said that, if I'm remembering correctly, he said something just got inside of him, and he just felt the urge. He said, I don't know what it was. It just came inside of me, and I just had to do it.
Yeah.
Something took over.
I think when you have that many rock stars in one room, you have to smash at least one
Roxy.
guitar.
Yeah, it's just necessary.
Yeah, so that was wild. And then when you smashed the guitar, I was like, okay, I'm here. I've arrived. This is where I belong.
This is it. Yeah,
this is what I dreamt about when I wanted to work in the music industry.
100%.
It's happening.
I mean, my very first concert ever as a little girl was Aerosmith. So for me, I'm like, what more do you need in life?
Yeah, it's wild. Okay, so then we worked together on Godsmack, When Legends Rise, that album, which I know for sure the single Bulletproof went number one on the rock charts, and then
Active
the
rock, yeah.
album also did incredibly well.
Yes. So, I mean, the single Bulletproof went platinum.
Yeah, and the album went gold,
Album went gold.
according to my research.
Yep.
Which
Album
is,
went gold.
which
A
is
couple of
iffy.
the singles went gold.
Yeah.
One single went platinum. Yeah.
So this.
I mean,
is,
the album did incredibly well.
so Joe Perry's album, which is incredible. I mean, Aerosmith, Joe Perry, and then you got Godsmack and that album, and this is all happening within the first year and a half, basically,
yeah, first
of you
2
getting
years
into,
of me
getting into
joining
management.
management. Yeah.
How did it? You just went into the deep end.
I dove head first, yes, and it was just and it was a learning curve. But thank God for my training in PR, because that saved me. I mean,
yeah,
because it was so like intense and hit the ground running with them that I feel like I was able to really manage a lot of like things coming at me really fast and like figuring it out. And there's a lot of like, you plan for things and nothing ever goes as planned, ever.
Do you think being thrown in the deep end is one of the best ways to learn
100%.
or the hardest ways to learn?
One of the best ways.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. I think that's I don't want to say it's the only way to learn, but if you're just kind of, this is what might happen and here's what you should do if this happens.
It gives you too much time to think.
Exactly.
And if you think long, you think wrong. Sometimes.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, because I feel like the best ways I've learned has been just jump in the deep end and just go.
Yes.
And that worked out for me. I'm sure it provided a lot of mistakes, but I also learned from those mistakes.
Oh my gosh.
along
I
the
have
way.
one of my favorite Joe Perry stories ever. A couple years ago, he did this, he did a guest appearance at an event in Florida. And I had to fly down to be like the main contact for that. And he was going to take a helicopter from his part of Florida to this part of Florida. But we had a crazy storm coming in. And helicopter wasn't going up. Period. End of story. Not happening. And it was like, well, how the heck are we getting Joe here? Well, he can get in a SUV and drive across Florida, basically. And it was like, that's not happening. And so I, last minute, was like, who do I know that can get me a private jet right now? Like, immediately. So it was like, pick up the phone and find Joe a private jet immediately. And we did it. And luckily, these people paid for it. But, it was a bunch of just immediate, like, phone calls, like, rushing. And we get Joe there. And we're like, great, okay, Joe's here. We'll be able to get him back on the helicopter. It's fine. Nope. Helicopter will not fly back either now.
Oh, no.
So now we have to get Joe back. And it's like, what do? We have to get him on a helicopter, or we have to get him on the same jet to go back. Mm-hmm. But it's like, time's running out. No one wants to pay for it. Like, everyone's freaking out. Like, it's a mess. Meanwhile, Joe's going on. Like, Joe has no idea what's going on, of course, Like,
Protect the
my
artist at
boss
all
had no
costs.
idea what was going on. So I'm just trying to, like, handle everything. But you're, like, in it, like... So I'm, like, basically got this guy, like, who's supposed to pay for it, and he's trying to give me a hard time. And, like, again, like, as a woman, like, in the industry, it's a little hard sometimes. Like, you kind of have to spuck up sometimes to these people and say, listen to me.
Yeah.
And eventually I got the guy to pay for the jet to turn around and bring Joe home, but it wasn't easy, and then it was like, we're getting down to the wire where the jet can't leave because they're going to like close the airspace or whatever. And
Because of the storm.
no, it wasn't the storm. It was getting later and later. And like the FBO was going to close.
Oh.
And like, I don't remember exactly like all the logistics, but like they weren't going to let the jet take off. And because after the event, Joe had to sign like 200 items. Joe had to like go around and sign, and then Joe's talking to people, and me and his, I don't know who it was at the time. It wasn't his tour manager, but someone, I forget who was there with us. We were just kind of like, let's go, Joe, let's go. Gotta get you out. Anyways, we got him out by like the skin of his teeth. Like it was like down to the wire. And the next day, I just remember being like, I don't know how we managed that. But somehow the word got back to Joe that like I managed this. And I got the nicest text message from him.
Oh, isn't that the best?
And it was so cool to get this text message. I'll have to show it to you later. Like it was like, hey, Lauren, I just wanted to let you know, like I heard last night was a bit chaotic and like you managed like the impossible basically. So I just wanted to say like I had no idea what was going on. And you managed that amazingly. So thank you so much.
That's incredible. You should print it out. And
I know. And like frame it.
Yeah.
I know. I like thought about that. I was like, oh my God, this is the best moment ever.
Yeah. That's super cool.
I'll never forget that. Like,
So
I love that.
What I'm taking away from that story is that problem solving and kind of like divergent
But it
thinking.
happens in the moment.
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, it's figure it out on the fly type of
you can't just put your hands up in the air and go, well, I don't know. Like, I know
never
we have to figure
don't
it
have
out.
an answer. Like never be, if you like, yeah, when you ask like some like things for people like to know like about management, it's never like, oh, I don't know. It's always like, oh, I don't know, but like I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Like let me get you an answer. Like
Right, we'll make it work.
You
Somehow
know.
we're going to figure this out.
Dave always says, he's like Lauren, the girl will always figure it out. I'm like,
All right,
right.
speaking of Dave Stewart, so you're working with Dave and you're the president of his label, Bay Street Records.
Mm-hmm.
What's day-to-day like going on now for you doing that?
So I run his label, Bay Street Records, and I do a lot of work for Dave Stewart Entertainment as well, which is more kind of like all of his businesses. He owns a vodka company. He's writing scripts. He has musicals. So Dave has his hands in a million different projects.
Always does, yeah.
So yes, that man.
I remember that night backstage at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We were in the hallway, and he goes, "Mike, come in my room. I want to show you something." I'm like thinking, like, what I do? Am I in trouble? And then he goes, "This is my vodka." I'm like, how did I not know you were creating a vodka? So
Of course, he was creating a vodka. It's so good too.
shout out to Poetry Vodka.
Poetry vodka is amazing. It's
Yeah.
really like my favorite vodka.
Do we have it here in Tennessee yet, in Nashville?
Not yet. We're working on it. We're
cool.
trying.
Well, I
have a bottle at home, but
I don't have a bottle.
You don't?
We could have put the bottle right here. We could have had a martini while we did this.
At
It's after
11:45 in the morning.
almost 12.
No, martini
almost 12.
time is not until 7:30. When I was with Dave a couple weeks ago, Dave and his wife, we were like 7:30 is when we are allowed to start having our martini. Sometimes we'd cheat and start at 7:15. We'd start making it so that it was ready by 7:30.
Yeah.
But you know,
How did the martini become so iconic with Dave Stewart? I feel like I need to get him on the show now.
you need to get Dave on the show. Dave would be iconic on this. But
Yeah.
I know that Anushka, his wife, absolutely is like loves vodka. Like that's how they went and they like basically like toured around Poland and like found the perfect vodka to basically be the Poetry Vodka.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dave is like he has perfected the martini. Like
Yeah.
it's his martini. I try to make it at home now. I'm like, okay, the Dave martini. I'm going to do it. And I can never.
Well, he has videos on Instagram of
He
him
does.
making them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I don't remember what year it was at the old PR firm that I was working at. And at that time, he was already doing martinis. I don't know when martinis started for him,
I
but
don't
it's
know
so
either.
iconic.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
I should know that. Sorry, Dave.
We should really get him on the show because I would
call him,
I would specifically want to talk to Dave Stewart about the muse and just the creative process in general. Because I feel like his way of thinking is on a different level. It's like he's like, if all the artists are doing this, let's go this way and try this.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do the complete opposite because everybody else is doing that. Let's do the opposite. And it's like
Genius.
so much of like, just let's experiment. Let's
I
be
love
creative.
how he thinks. Like his just sitting with him and listening to him speak. It's just like I feel like I'm like I want to like be a sponge. I just want to soak it all in and
Yeah.
be like, what can I learn right now? You know,
What's something that you've learned that you can recall right now? Just by how long have you been working with Dave?
I've been
and his
working
label?
with Dave since September
Okay, September. What year?
of 2023. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. So a little over a year.
Yeah.
Oh my God. honestly, resilience. I mean, that man will, like, he won't stop. Like, he figures it out. Like, I have watched him grind. Like, he's like, okay, that doesn't work. Let's figure something else out.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm like, I love that. Like,
yeah, I admire that. That's a great quality.
It's such a great quality. And I'm like, okay, like, I'm not going to give up. Like, don't give up ever on anything.
Yeah.
You know? And, like, he bobs and weaves and figures it out and does things that, like, are just so incredible. And, like, he's a businessman. He's a musician. Like, he's 8 million different things, you know, an incredible dad and husband. Yeah. Like, I mean, just, yeah.
And I feel like having that creative mindset, that just creative way of thinking, which Dave is generally always on creative mode, lends to his business thinking on a different level that most business people don't even try to think because they're too rigid in what they've been taught is the right way to think about business. And he comes at it from a creative angle, which opens up so many other ideas and possibilities and workarounds and like figuring out a new way to solve a problem.
Yeah.
So on the label side now, you guys you did some projects with Joss Stone. Obviously, all of Dave's music runs through the label. His daughter Kaya Stewart and Kiss Bang stuff's going on with that. What would you say has opened your eyes going from management? Because that was a ton of experience you gained. And now on the label side, are you seeing things from a different point of view at all?
I am, yes. It's a different world in a way, but it's also similar, right? I mean, everything kind of runs hand in hand, but it's funny to be on the label side of things and be like chasing managers for things and being like, oh, I see what it feels like to be on the label side now, you know? So it's interesting to kind of see things from a different perspective and, you know, to be making budgets on the label side and, you know, putting together, you know, like music videos and just kind of doing it on the other side of things, you know? Right. But again, it all kind of runs together.
I've always thought of the labels, depending on the team at the label. Sometimes you have a really driven creative team that really pushes a project or an artist. But sometimes on a bigger level, I think of the label as like a bank. Would you think that's accurate? Or
it is,
like they're loaning you money to do this project?
Yes.
And you're going to pay interest back to the bank, you know, in terms of royalties, advances, whatever you want to call it. So am I right with that?
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. Yeah.
Is it a fair way to look at it?
I would say. Yeah.
What would you say to aspiring artists who think they need a label deal? Do they need a label deal?
No. It depends. It really depends
depend on their goals?
It depends on their goals. It really does. Every artist is different. There are so many artists now that are independent and can stay independent, and it depends what you're looking to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need a label. Sometimes you need a publishing deal. Like it depends what you're looking to do.
Yeah. I mean, the labels, obviously, with the financial backing can help the trajectory take off more like a rocket rather than a slow ascent. And I was just reading Alex Van Halen's memoir, which was really good. It's really all about his early days with his brother. But he says that they didn't actually start making like rock star money until like album, I don't know, like 1984, like their last album with David Lee Roth.
I believe that.
Because they were always reinvesting. They didn't realize like, oh, the hotels were trashing. Oh, we're paying for that. It's all coming out of the band's pocket.
Exactly.
All these little things that they're doing on the road. They're actually paying for it.
Is getting paid for somewhere. Yeah. Where do they think it's coming from? But like, again, so a lot of times too, like the artists aren't getting, like the artists don't know any better. Like they're just signing their lives away sometimes and don't realize. So, I mean, one thing that I love about Dave and Bay Street is it's really like, it's supposed to be, you know, a partnership with the artist. You know, so like the artists should really know like what they're signing, you know. So a lot of times with a lot of the larger record labels, they don't really know what they're signing. And
they're signing social media numbers sometimes.
Well, that too, but just you don't realize a lot of artists that I've spoken to that have signed larger record label deals, we didn't realize that they're taking merch We didn't realize that they're taking a percentage of our touring. It's like, why is your label taking your touring? You know, and it's like, oh no, actually that's more common than you realize.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like things like that where it's like, you really have to be careful about your deals. You have to have a good lawyer, you know, and sometimes like when you're a smaller band and you're getting signed or you blow up on TikTok and suddenly you're getting every single label in the world is interested in you and they're trying to bring you in and you don't know what you're doing and you're signing these deals, like you could get taken advantage of really quickly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think like it almost feels like if you want to be an artist now, you also need to understand the business side of the industry.
Yes.
So you can protect yourself from being screwed by a bad deal or working with a bad manager who's like, let's talk about Elvis and his manager who took 50%. Is that right?
I don't remember the percentage, but it was
I think he took like 50%.
Insane. Well, yeah, and then had a gambling addiction and exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
but on the other side of it, Colonel Tom Parker and Elvis basically created the modern music business.
Right. That's just
that
it
we
too.
all kind of like know how to run with now because Elvis was the first superstar on that level with merchandising and all these things that were happening. So anyways, I guess my question is, if you were an artist, would you sign a label deal?
Depends.
Yeah.
It depends.
Depends on where you're at.
Depends on where I'm at. It depends on what I'm looking to accomplish. And it depends on the label.
Yeah.
I wouldn't just sign any label deal. Yeah, it depends.
What is a good label deal? Because I don't know.
No, I know, right? I know. It also depends. I mean, again, it's a partnership with the label. It depends.
Yeah.
So again, it's what are you trying to accomplish, right? Do you want a lot of money up front? Do you need to pay your bills? Or are you trying to, make a really good album and get a lot of marketing behind the album? Like, it depends what you're looking.
And
it all depends.
That sucks for a modern artist these days who needs to understand the business. And while they're trying to understand the business and learn the business, they're not focusing on the creative aspect and how to become like a groundbreaking new act instead of a cookie cutter copy. Like we get so many of.
Well, that's the other thing too, is a lot of labels too. It's like, okay, maybe it's like the money's there or whatever, but it's like, does your label want to change you as an artist? Like so many labels I've seen and heard stories where it's like they sign you and then they're like, oh, but we want you to be this type of artist. And it's like, well, that's not who I am. And it's like, well, no, that's what we want from you. And if you don't want to do that, we're going to shelf you. Mm-hmm. And then good luck ever doing anything.
Yeah.
And it's like that.
Which seems like a bad investment if we go back to the analogy of a label being a bank.
Right.
Right?
Exactly. Yes. But then there's so many other, then there's the politics that are involved and there's so much, it runs so much deeper than that at that point. But
yeah. Well,
that's for another
day, I don't want to take up any more of your time because I know you're busy and I've already probably taken way too much of it.
Never.
But thanks for doing this with me.
This is so much fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Maybe we'll do a part 2.
Yes. I would love that.
All right. Cool.
All right. Thanks, Mike.